Oh, wow.
I'm like a teacher.
Okay. I'm recording, so whenever
Lovely.
you want to start.
Okay, so we start with Momentum then.
Yes.
Immediately hit Netflix top 10 when it came out. What's
Yeah.
been the response from your end?
Oh, the response was crazy. Even sometimes when you're on a huge platform like Netflix, I was more worried that I'd get lost. You got so much content on there, and I'm always discovering new things, new films, comedians, and box sets and stuff. So immediate when I'm on there, I was like, oh, it's great, but I don't know, like, people, how can people watch it? And then yeah, it came out, and the response from people around the world of places where I didn't know. I know it sounds quite ignorant, but I didn't know they were watching Netflix in Brazil or Indonesia and stuff. So especially my stuff, of all stuff. So the response has been, it's been like, at first it was quite overwhelming, if I'm honest, because you're getting all these people from around the world just being, oh my God, this is great, like when are you touring, and like what's next for you, when's your next special? And you're like, I don't know, this one came out today, so I don't know. But yeah, it's been a great response from people and stuff, so yeah.
And a lot of new followers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, new followers, just like new fans that are now discovering other bits I've done, like some of the socials and the TV show and stuff. So yeah, it's been a nice little like ripple effect for all the other projects, so yeah.
And you had a six-piece band on stage with you. That's quite big.
I did.
Ambitious.
That was, I wanted to do something a little bit different. Having an opportunity to go on Netflix and announce myself to the world, I was like, well, this is going to be like my first special that I'm always going to look back at. So I kind of wanted to do something different. Like we had music in the tour show that would be normally played with a DJ, whereas this time I thought, why not have a band? Like why can't I have a band? I know I'm not a singer, but why not? So we had a band. We done some rehearsals and some warm-up dates with a band, and we clicked. At the guy who was one of the directors of the music of the band. I used to go to school with him, so he kind of got everyone together, and they're all doing their own projects. You know, one of the band members, he plays for like Rita Ora. Another one plays on like the X Factor sometimes, and has to go to like South Africa. So to even have those guys was like a big deal in itself. So it was it was really fun.
And you're pretty good at the music side of things. You ever thought about doing music rather than comedy?
No, I have, but I've got a lot of friends who do music seriously, so I never want to be the person that's like, oh, it's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? And they're like, it's not. I like to have fun with music. I'm very influenced by music, so I try to put it in my stand-up and stuff like that as well, yeah.
Grand comedy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of physicality, excuse me, in your show. There's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of movement. How do you keep that energy up?
I guess for the show is, when we first done the tour, I was quite naive and just like, turn up and just let's just go. And the first couple of shows, my body was just like, you have to really look after your body. And I was quite naive and thinking, nah, just go out there, do the jokes, we'll go out tonight, guys. Wake up early in the morning, we're back on the road. And by the fourth show we done, because it was like a row of shows, and the last show ended up being Bristol, my voice started going on stage. So already I'm like really having to like, because I changed my pitch of my voice a lot when I do accents and stuff. Sometimes you got to talk from the bottom of your throat, sometimes you got to talk from your diaphragm and some jokes. So I had to really start learning this stuff. So I tried to look after my body a lot more, especially on tour, eating healthy food. I became pescatarian for a little while. And then other than that, it's just like, obviously you go gym to make sure you're fit and stuff on stage. But yeah, it's like, I really understood the art form a little bit more and took it a lot more serious. Yeah.
So what about the new show?
Yes.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, the new show, it's weird because when I had the first show, I always felt like I don't really want to tell people too much, because I always like my audience like, I've seen that one, so what's this one's going to be a bit like? So this is like, there's more to life. So I guess it's like, I always try and say, and it's a little bit of an extension to what Momentum was a little bit. And it's kind of like the stage I am of my life now, really, a little bit. So that tour was almost, I always felt like a coming of age stand-up special, spoke about when I was young and stuff, where this one is a bit, it's kind of like the extension of that a little bit more. So I can, and a little bit, weirdly enough, because with Momentum, I'd done that tour from 2017, 2019, so, and in that time I wanted to do new stuff. So this is like my opportunity now, tell you all the fun stories of me and people like Drake and stuff. So I think that's what I'm really excited about, is going back on the road. And it's hard because obviously some people have watched Momentum and said, is it going to be like that? You're going to do that Rastafari nurse rhymes again? And you're like, no, I doubt it. But I guess there'll be something in there for somebody that has watched that and that. So I don't want to change it up too much, basically. But yeah, I've tried to have something for everyone.
But you don't want to go and just do a greatest hits, do you?
No. Because I think the weird thing with comedy is when I perform stuff that people have already heard, you get people looking at you, they just smile. I need a reaction, I need laughter, as opposed to like, oh, good, he's enjoying himself. So I think for myself, it's just to, I'm always trying to change how I do comedy a little bit. So the band was a risk, doing, you know, stuff like nursery rhymes and talking about my family was a bit of a risk. So I'm trying to go back into that again for this next tour, basically.
And what about playing different countries, playing Australia, playing parts of Europe, playing America? Are you going to adjust your material? Are you going to alter anything about it?
I always try to relate to where I am. So whether it's when I was in Australia, we briefly spoke about when we got to immigration and stuff like that. They just let us through, which was quite weird because I've always seen programs like, you know, like those programs where, what's it called again? Nothing to Declare. Those kind of programs. So you get there and they're like, what's in your bag, mate? And they're like, I've just got like some rosemary beads or whatever. So yeah, already I was like, oh cool, we've just got in. So I always try to share experiences of stories like within certain countries I'm in. It just makes it feel a little bit more warm and less planned. So yeah, I will change it slightly for where I am. And plus it'd be really fun going to some country I've never been to, like Finland and like the States. There'd be some states I've never been to. I've been to New York and LA, so going to places like Texas, for example, Canada, and going to Toronto. So yeah, it's exciting, man. Really, really excited, yeah.
Your themes are pretty universal, aren't they?
I try to make them, yeah. I try to make them things that anyone can watch, and it's quite timeless, and you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, or if you haven't been through it, you know someone who has, or if not, then you can understand my lifestyle. So I do try to make it like everyone can watch it. That's always my plan, is that your little brother can watch it and your nan can watch it. I want both audiences, so yeah.
A lot of people are talking now about you breaking the US, that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're very British, but you've got that kind of slickness that American comics
Do
have.
I? Oh, thanks, man. I didn't know that. Yeah, I never knew that. I guess, you know what? The States is always there. My goal is always to, like, I need to be a household name in my own backyard first. So that's always the tick box. And if they take to me over the States, that would be great. But yeah, I don't know. If it takes off there, it takes off there, really. But if I don't know. It's always like, I've always found like with music and acting, it's like you've got to break the States. And so yeah, I wouldn't say I'd focus on that too much, but if it happens, it'll be great. If it doesn't, I know I've still got a home and a family back here that will always go to my shows and support me. So yeah, I think that's the cool thing. And
you've got the Times saying you're the funniest man in Britain, which isn't bad.
Yeah, well that is weird because yeah, I didn't know about that tagline until I think I've done Good Morning Britain. And it's like, so we got the funniest man in Britain here. And I was like, who said that? Because, like, my uncle's funnier than me, innit? So it's going to be a bit long at the family gathering. So, yeah, they said it. So, hey, man, I'm all for it.
I know this is really old news for you, but
yeah.
Can you tell us the story of Drake and how he sort of got on board with you?
Okay, so when I was putting out the videos, like the Couple of Cans videos, which was like it's like me impersonating like what a geezer is like. And he followed me, and I was at Wireless Festival. I was like backstage, and there was this section that you couldn't go into basically. And one of the security guards said, oh, you can't go there. And I said, no, I'm just going because my friend's on the other side. So the security guard was like, no, it's fine. And he let me through. And as I've walked up, I've seen Drake. So I've looked, and I was like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? You all right? And he looked at me and was like, hey, you all right? So I was like, okay. He's saying hello to me. This is a bit weird. Then he came over. And then he was like, hey, what's up, Mo? How you doing, man? I'm like, yeah, cool, man. Like, we briefly interacted online, but it's just different when you're there and you're around people. And like, everyone was like looking like, oh my God, like Mo's talking to Drake kind of thing. And he was like, yeah, so how's things, man? I was like, yeah, it's good, man. What about yourself? He's like, yeah, good. You coming out tonight with us? And I was like, yeah, man, I might go out tonight. Being super cool. And then a part of me was like, yeah, I might, I'll see, man, see what's going on and stuff. And then one of my friends who's like, a friend of mine, Chris, he's French, but he's got this weird American accent because he's learned English through watching American films. So I was like, I don't know, I'll see. And then my friend Chris is like, come on, Mo, we've got to go to the after party. And I'm like, kind of kind of killing my cool right now, Chris. You know? But yeah, man, lovely guy. I seen him when he came down for the Top Boy premiere and stuff, and I think that's a cool thing. You know, he had so many young actors there, and he's just like mingling and talking to these new young stars and stuff. And I think that's what people like really appreciate him, because he comes over and he kind of takes time to this, like, because you know, you got some of these young kids, and that means a lot to get a picture with someone like that. So yeah, it's always good when you can meet someone who's a huge star around the world, but can still like say, hey, what's up, how you been, kind of thing. Kind of sets you back and like, oh, cool, like, I thought you'd forget me, or you know what I mean? So yeah, man, lovely guy, man.
And he really loves Brits, doesn't he?
Yeah, man, like we've really like taken to him over here, you know. That's like the thing, innit? Get Drake a British passport, like. But it's good when people come over here and they kind of invest in the culture a little bit as well. I think people kind of really appreciate that. So yeah, man, lovely guy, man.
Can I ask you how you started out in comedy? Did you have a funny family?
Well, my mum's the funny one. I've always said, like, my mum is the one who is just very funny. Like, my mum's side of my family is very funny. I say with me in stand-up, I was just like a bit of a class clown in school. And then people always say you should do stand-up comedy. And I always say, well, I don't know, because like they're like professionals. I don't know how it's going to work for me. And then I went to like an open mic night, which was in East Dulwich, a football stadium called Dulwich Hamlet. So they used to do comedy nights there. So I went down there. I was meant to do 5 minutes, ended up doing like 25 minutes. And it went really, because it was going really well. I had all my friends and stuff come down. And that was like my first like real taste of doing some stand-up. And then after that, I just started doing like all these small open mic nights. I remember at the time I just finished uni. So I was still doing these small open mic nights. I just finished uni, I didn't have a job, started signing on. And there was this one show, and you know, you get paid £50. It's like a competition type thing. And I won, and I managed to get £50. And for me, you know, someone who was signing on, didn't have a job, just finished uni, I was like, oh my God, it's got £50 for like telling some jokes. And it went really well. Like, I want to do this. Is this a job? How do I get to do this every night? So through that was like my first kind of love of doing stand-up. And I was only like 19 at the time, but it was just this like, I managed to find something that I was good at. I came from like more of like a performing arts background, studied at a uni and stuff, but comedy was like the one thing where I was like, I'm kind of good at this and I can kind of do it by myself. I don't need to go to like casting auditions, and I might be the right face or the right look, or, you know, it's just me when I go on that stage and no one else. And I really enjoyed that whole part about it. And kind of like, as I've got older, it's like a way to like, you know, when you go up on stage, you kind of bare your soul a little bit. You go out there and you say, yeah, this is me, this is who I am. You know, every joke is a risk at times. I'm talking about my mum and my dad. And so I think stand-up is, weirdly enough, like, and a lot of comics say this, it becomes therapy a little bit. It's like, I really want to talk about this, but how do I talk about it and show, you know, joy and, you know, or just get it off my back? And stand-up kind of allowed me to do that a little bit. So yeah, I think that's what I've always appreciated about doing stand-up comedy. Yeah.
What do your parents think of the show? I mean, you've got some... Is your mum all right with the stuff about vaginicals?
My mum loves it. You see, my mum, we have this weird like exchange where, like, with my success, my mum just like, she's so like, my mum's so supportive with my success and stuff, and she goes to all the live shows and the TV recordings and stuff. You know, she brings some of her friends from work. So like, my mum's always like, yeah, that's great doing Netflix special. Yeah, I'd really love a cruise. So I'm like, okay, it seems like a bit of a hint, mum. Like, so I was like, so for my mum's birthday, I got her a cruise basically. So we have this like weird exchange where my mum's like, oh man, this kitchen, I could do with a bit of a refresh. Okay, well, more mum jokes, you get a new kitchen. Like, but no, my mum's super supportive. My dad's massively supportive. My dad he moved back to St. Lucia now. So yeah, my whole family on that side as well of the pond is massively supportive as well. They're always posting that, like, my cousin's doing a world tour and stuff. So it's really cool that, you know, with a lot of my material, even though I do like talk about my mum and dad I try to do it in a kind of playful way as opposed to like a malicious way. So yeah, they're all supportive over it. So it's cool. But there'll be some more mum jokes in there for the next tour.
And more, well, maybe more Rasta nursery rhyme type stuff.
Well, yeah, possibly. Like, I didn't know that would be such a success when I made that up, really. Until people say, oh yeah, my little daughter watches it and stuff like that. Or some people say, you should make like a children's like album of nursery rhymes and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, maybe not. I don't know, like, yeah. But it's for me, it's like, I guess it's like, the cool thing is sometimes with comedy is like you can have a weird sense of humour and think only you get it. And until I started doing stand-up, I realised, oh my God, people have this idea of this, and you guys find that funny as I do, which is a lot of time when I'm on stage, I laugh at a lot of my own jokes because I've made this up and you guys find it funny as I do. So I try to enjoy it in the moment everyone else does. Even though we've done the tour countless times and I've told the joke so many times or done this routine, each time it still makes me laugh because we're all doing it together. So it becomes this like moment of like, wow, this is really fun. Like I made this up in my bedroom and you guys find it funny. Yeah.
And it's great that the band is still cracking up as well.
Yeah. I always said to the band, I said, guys, if you want to laugh, like laugh, you know what I mean? Enjoy it. I want you guys to enjoy it. Don't just sit there like we're a band and we got to look cool and stuff. I was like, I'd rather you guys look most like yourself than try and be cool. Because it just doesn't look good. You know, you try and be too cool and you're like, no, you're trying too hard. So I said to the band, I was like, guys, if you want to enjoy it, just, yeah. And I always, even the band when they were playing, I said, if you want to add new bits in it and stuff, just go for it, man. I'm a big fan of like improvisation. It just feels a bit more natural as well. So yeah.
And every show's a little bit different. That's good.
Oh, they're always different. Yeah, even that show we recorded for Netflix special, like some of the material when I was telling it was sometimes weirdly different nights. You know, you laugh. This routine will get a bigger laugh, and other routines. Sometimes people laugh at bits you didn't. It's like little small bits you might put in. So I think that's the really cool thing with stand-up. You can always keep making a joke or routine better. So yeah.
And it's amazing to think that it's only a couple of years ago you were working in the Levi's store at Covent Garden.
Yeah. I was in the Levi's store. That was my last retail job. I was working part-time there. And yeah, I weirdly enough, sometimes every time I drive past or I walk past that shop, I always have to look in to see if there's anyone who still work there. Weirdly enough, a lot of people have left now, but it's like that constant reminder of just like, wow, I used to walk into this shop and go, I'm most of the time be running late, but yeah, it always fits like a reminder of like, wow, it's like kind of when you go past your old school, just like, I used to go to school there. So it always kind of fits as a reminder of just like, yeah, I remember just running in late or having to take the bins out and stuff like that. So yeah.
You've had a hell of a meteoric rise there. I mean, it's been extraordinary, and also building that kind of grassroots following really early on that stuck with you.
Yeah,
it's worked really well.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest, I was never like prepared for the rise. I never knew if there would be a rise. I just wanted to kind of, do a tour and see how that went. And TV came, and then that went quite well. So I think for myself, it was always just like, it's kind of like always kept like kind of plodding along of like, okay, cool, that'd be quite a cool project to do. Let's kind of get involved in that. So yeah, it's been really fun, man, and just like to be able to share it as well on social media and projects I'm doing, and seeing people that still hold the same excitement when I'm releasing certain projects. Like when I'm going to tell people I've got a world tour and people are still excited like they was for the first tour. So I try to like live in the moment a lot when I'm announcing these projects and stuff, so yeah.
Am I right in thinking you opened for or you compared for Stormzy and Ed Sheeran?
Yeah.
Pre-fame.
Yeah. So yeah. So basically, there's this place called Plan B, and I remember Stormzy was performing. This is when he was like kind of this up and coming guy you was hearing about in the underground kind of circuit. And yeah, I remember I was like, yeah, you got Stormzy coming on, guys, and stuff. And as an audience, like, all right, cool, like everyone's laid back because he wasn't the Stormzy he is now. And weirdly enough, there was some people that came to that show to see him, just a couple people. And yeah, I remember just watching him. Sometimes you watch some people and you're like, this guy's going to be huge. Like, you just know. I don't know what it is. And that was the same thing when I met Ed Sheeran. That was like when I used to host a show called Sunday Show. So I remember Ed Sheeran, he came and performed at the show. It used to happen every night. I used to be the host. And predominantly the show, you get a lot more like rap, grime, UK hip hop and stuff. So to have like Ed Sheeran at the time, he was like this kind of folk singer. And, predominantly like more of a black show as well. So to have a white ginger guy doing with a guitar was just like, it never happened at the show basically. And I remember that show was packed. It was absolutely packed. So I met him. So I said, hey man, how you feeling, man? He said, I'm quite nervous, man. I said, dude, you'll be fine. Like, you'll be great. Don't worry about it. And he plugged in his guitar and he started performing, and the crowd would just like everyone was just taken back. Everyone's like, wow, this guy is amazing. And I remember that day so vividly because I was just sitting there just like, this guy's going to be big. Like, you just knew, because the way people was reacting to his music, it was like, wow. And this wasn't his audience, if I'm honest. Like, this was a predominantly black audience that used to, especially with this show, they, you know, you get a lot more rappers and grime artists and stuff. So to have this guy, and I wouldn't say he was doing folk songs at the time. I think he's doing that song called "You Know Me, Man, I Don't Know You," and he had like a bit of a rap and stuff, and he's doing his stuff with guitar. And people were just like, wow, this guy's talented. And you just knew he was gonna blow up. And literally, I think 2-3 months after that, he was performing at every single like small show, and big crowds were coming to watch him. And then what, like maybe a year later, he was like, you know, music videos, and he had been signed and stuff. So sometimes when you share the stage with those kind of people, it just lets you know, like, cool, my time, that could be me one day. You know, when you watch these people and you're like, and that's happened many a time with like other artists, and you sit there and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna keep going because I can see it's happened for them, and maybe that might happen to me. So yeah, it's always like really cool when you see like the come up of some people. I think it's one thing I guess I get to cherish, like when I was kind of first starting out, of seeing like people's careers and then they just skyrocket, and you just say, I remember when he was there, and you know, and there's so many other people I can name, but it's just like those two will always, like, I always remember that I was just like, yeah, it makes noise for this guy called Stormzy and stuff, you know. So yeah.
You must be saying that about you now.
Hopefully, yeah. I don't know. You know, I've been doing stand-up a long time, and I've had a lot of long-term friends that have say, oh, like that always correct people and say, look, Mo's been doing this for a good number of years. He didn't just start this like 2 years ago. So yeah, it always feels nice that like people always remind people that it's just like man, you didn't get this overnight. He worked really hard for this. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, there might be someone else who's like, I hosted a show and Mo was there, now he's done a world tour. So yeah, man, it's good to kind of keep going and kind of hopefully I'm inspiring other people, you know.
You must get recognised everywhere now, including internationally. You don't go on holiday anymore.
Yeah, when I go on holiday, I think weirdly enough, I remember I went to New York like 2 years ago, and I was in a shop buying a coat, and I said, dude, have you got this in like a large or XL? This guy was like, oh my God, you know Gilligan? And I was like, yeah. Like, he's like, yeah. He's like, oh man, I watch your stuff, man, you funny. And I was like, thanks, man. Like it just took me back, because I didn't know that anyone across the pond would know who I am. And that was the power of social media. That was before the tour, that was before TV shows and Netflix and stuff. So yeah, you know, I get recognized in the street and stuff, and people ask for pictures, but yeah, I love like stuff, you know, I always take time out of my day to like take a picture of something. You know how that can change your day sometimes, do you know what I mean? So I'd always try my best to like, yeah, like quickly have a picture, and you know, if I'm in a rush, because I've been that person and seen someone and I'm like, oh my God, you're a thing, and they're like, yeah, cool. And you're like, oh, okay. You know? So yeah, I try to just make as much time as I can for people, you know.
Can I ask you about Netflix? It's kind of changing the game for comedians, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
For that international audience, you know, you're going to, what, 190 countries?
Yeah.
It's potentially huge.
It's a big deal, man. And the fact that I was on there and it was going out to 190 countries, it didn't really sink in until after it came out. It was all good saying, it's going to be out in 190 countries, but until it happened, and people in like places in America and places around the world were actively like, oh my God, I've just watched it. And to this day, like every day I get messages from people around the world like, hey, I just watched you. And you know, like for example, Netflix have an Instagram and a Twitter platform called Strong Black Lead, and then they put up like a clip of it, and then you had more people who's like, I just watched it, oh my God, this is funny when you're touring. And yeah, I think that's the cool thing about like what they do really, is that they're beaming it out into all these kind of places, and yeah, you just kind of like people watch it, do you know what I mean? And that's what you kind of want if you put so much effort into it. And not even for me, all the other people that worked on it, is to have a project and it goes out there and people can watch it and discover new things. And like I had someone message me and say, you know, you mentioned garage and I didn't know what it was, and it's completely introduced me to a new form of music. And already I was like, oh, whoa, I done that? Really wicked. But yeah, I think that's the really cool thing of like what streaming platforms can do, because you know, I know like not even like 20 years ago you wouldn't have something like that, you know, where you can go and perform. And so I think that's like how like the internet is really changing like people's lives. So yeah.
Totally, like stumbling upon something that they never would have found otherwise.
Yeah, of course.
Are you going to do another one for this coming show? Because your mum might need an extension.
Hopefully, but it's not confirmed yet. Yeah, I would love to do another one, but I haven't had any confirmation yet.
Yeah. Okay, so comedy heroes,
Yes.
who were they? Brits, Americans?
A mixture of both, man. I remember growing up watching people like Lee Evans, great physical comedian, just really funny, just having a show about, in his show talking about like a 50 pence piece and a 20 pence piece. And just like really, I think like when I used to watch a lot of like British comics, people like Lee Evans, and just be like, wow, that was really funny. You know, like Peter Kay, and especially like some comics within the black circuit, you know, people like Slim and Kojo and, you know, Kane Brown. A lot of these comics, when I first started, you know, on the black comedy scene, these were like the heroes within the black community as such. So sometimes to like share the stage with like Richard Blackwood, for example, was like a big deal. I was like, oh, I'm performing with Richard Blackwood. I was like, oh, really? So, you know, like coming up and like sharing the stage with these guys, and I always kind of look at some of those guys as like mentors as well, because they also kind of help you out and give you small bits of advice. And then you look at some of the comics in the States like Chappelle and, you know, Chris Rock and Kevin Hart, and you see like the stardom of what, like, I remember watching like Eddie Murphy, like things like Raw and Delirious, and you're like, oh my God, he's performing to a huge arena. And for me, I'd be like, wow, I wonder what that's like to do as a comic. So kind of weirdly, like, to be in this position of like performing in big venues and you watch those people, it's always inspiring as a comic, but at the same time, I like learning like the art form of comedy and how different comedians are different. Like I recently watched Russell Brand's special, and I've never really watched these comedy before, but just like, I think that's the cool thing, is like you sometimes tap into other comics at different stages of your life. So when I was younger, I'd watch like a lot of the Def Jam comics, for example, and then the older I get, sometimes you can relate to some comics more, because you're like, yeah, I go through that and I understand what that is. Whereas when you're young, you're like, I don't know what this guy's talking about, you know. So I think that's the cool thing with comedy. It's always changing, and as you get older, you know, you kind of discover new comics, or you kind of, I want to, like, for example, I watched Bill Burr last year, and yeah, I never really knew much about Bill Burr, even though I'm a comic, and sometimes as a comic, the cliche is that you should know about every comic, but I don't really watch a lot of comedy. So to then watch someone live for the first time, I was like, right, this guy's great, man. This guy's really funny. Seinfeld. I've seen Seinfeld for the first time, like a couple of months ago. And I've always, you know, you hear his big name, like, but I'm like, I've never seen his stand-up. And I watched his stand-up at Soho Theatre, and I was like, I can see why you're so good now, you know. And I get it now in someone who's my 30s, as maybe in my 20s, I don't think I would have understood it. So I think that's the cool thing about you know, the comics that exist at the moment. You can just, and plus discover loads of new people as well. You know, like Ali Wong, for example, just discovering, this is the cool thing about things like Netflix. I would never have discovered her, you know. So yeah, it's just a bigger world now, and hopefully now it's you know, a lot of people say the world's big, but I always think with social media it made it a little bit smaller. So I mean, that's what's really cool about things.
Seems like you're quite scientific about comedy.
Well, I do try and analyse it from an outside perspective. So when I do the tours and stuff, there's a lot that goes into the tour of like what music the DJ is playing, how hot the room is, the lighting and stuff. All these things of being someone who's been in a position as an audience member, I put into my show. So it's always making sure that, for example, I have a DJ. So I always make sure to the DJ, I always say, before I go on, you've got to play the hits, or the bangers that we call them. That gets you in the mode for a comedy show a little bit different. Because I've gone to comedy shows and you're waiting around, you're talking to someone else, and then even the way that sometimes the warm-up act comes on. Okay guys, we've got a warm-up act, his name's Jeff Bernstein, and he comes on and no one's really bothered. I always sit there and I'm like, oh, this poor guy, man, he's performing here and people are still in the bar and stuff. And so when I had my show, I'd come out as a character, so everyone's, oh, Mo's coming out. Then I'd introduce my warm-up act to come on, and that would just create so much more of a buzz for them. It wasn't for them to like, you laugh and get them ready for me. It was like, no man, showcase how good you are. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's always like the plan of like making an actual show of it. So I do kind of look quite deep into the show and stuff, making sure we start on time, we end on time. yeah, all those little small things, like, and I'm a bit of a pet peeve. I'll even say to venues, I'm like, you know, can we make sure that